Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Foleon webinar, Empowering Sales with Content at Scale. Today, we're going to give you a little look in the Foleon kitchen and give you some insights into one of the major use cases that a lot of our customers buy the platform for, but many customers with a marketing focus might not have thought about before, maybe not realized, or maybe not seen. And I'm very happy to say I'm joined today by two of my colleagues from the sales and RevOps teams. So a warm welcome to Roell Bucker, who is over in New York, and Valentina, who is in Amsterdam. How you doing, guys?
Good. Thank you, Richard, for having us here.
Looking forward to this webinar.
No, good. So good to have you here, and I think really interesting topic for today, right? So as I said, a lot of people who buy Foleon, use Foleon, do that with the primary use case being proposal, pitch, presentation type sales processes. And as I say, people with a marketing focus might not necessarily have thought about that, but it is a very strong use case for the platform. And of course, in addition to talking about many customers who do that, we do, of course, do that ourselves. So with that in mind, we thought it would be quite useful to talk to today and show you a little bit about how we ourselves use the platform, how the Foleon format lends itself very strongly to a lot of the content that is involved in sales processes, and how that combination of strong governance and brand control from a template, brand kit, design perspective, together with the ability for non-designers to be able to create content themselves, which is, of course, what you've got in a sales team where they want to be responsible for their own content. That's obviously something that the platform does very well. So looking forward to getting into this with Roell and Valentina. Valentina, particularly with respect to the data piece on the back end. Of course, we know that Foleon as a digital content creation platform is going to do a great job of helping you to understand how your content is being consumed. And it's also going to do a great job of feeding that data into other systems that can benefit from it. But enough of me going on about it. I think I'd like to give the floor over to the other guys as well and say, Roel, maybe you can start, if you would, giving us a little bit of an idea about what sort of content we're talking about in a typical sales process and some of the challenges that you might face if you're not using something like Foleon.
Yeah, I think in general, right, like the buying cycle shifted in the last couple of years. So our prospect and our customers, they want to have information as quick as possible, which means that also the way we create content and provide content to our prospects completely shifted. And I think that's the sort of the topic that we want to talk to you about today. But when I think about what kind of content my team is utilizing, it's obviously a lot of content that the marketing team is providing with like ebooks, success cases. But we also have a lot of like sales related use cases, and we call them buyer enablement content. So for example, sales decks, proposals, buyer hubs, all types of content that we typically really need quickly, right? And to your point, the challenge that you have with sort of historic content creation process is that we're always dependent on other teams in the business. And I understand it, right? These other teams are also very busy. They have their own content that they need to produce. For example, the marketing team and the design team, they are creating content for all the teams within the organization. And that doesn't really fit with sort of our high pace environment where we talk to prospects on a daily, and we really want to follow up with content relatively fast after that conversation, because time kills all deals, right? People really need the content now, and it's all about momentum in sales. So that's why we also sat together with our marketing team and our design team to really start thinking about, okay, how can we optimize our own sales process and how we create a better process around empowering people in the organization and also creating content at scale.
Okay, clear. So I mean, I imagine some people who are watching may be thinking, well, at the moment we work with PowerPoints, for example, slide decks to do presentations or proposals for clients. And, typically end of a meeting, we might save that as a PDF and fire it over via the email. What are some of the challenges as a sales leader that you have if that's what your process looks like?
Yeah, I think let's start with the obvious one, right? So those formats that you just described, they are pretty outdated. So when people are consuming content, they don't only do that on their desktop, right? They are on the fly. They open their emails via their mobile device. So I think from an output perspective, you want to make sure that you give them an experience that they consume on every device that they are on. But then also the other part is like, you want to learn and you want to understand how people are consuming your content, what they find relevant, who is engaging with that content. And I think those legacy formats, they just tend not to have those functionalities. And I think that's where we also work very close together with Valentina when it comes to like, okay, how can we get more around sort of the intelligence from our platform? And last but not least, I would say it's typically a mess, right? So I think a lot of organizations, they try to create content with sales teams and they need to create a lot of content. But in the format itself, it's hard to produce and it's also hard to maintain. So to make sure that everything is up to date and ensuring that the teams that is creating content don't use, for example, outdated content or content that is off brand. So I think that's where a lot of like optimization can be made as well.
And if you think about obviously the customers that you know, right, that you've sold to, but also how you work yourself within the team, can you say something about the creation process, right, and having teams delivering content to sales versus sales being more in the lead themselves and able to create what they need themselves? How does that influence your effectiveness as a sales team?
Yeah. So I understand it's also a bit scary, right? To sort of empower salespeople to sort of create the content that they need, because sales reps don't have the best view, right? So we tend to break things. So for us, it's really important to sort of make sure that there is a governed way for our sales team to create content and do it fast. So 5 minutes after a discovery for a call, for example. And indeed, that's why, you can just be much more effective. Indeed, like everything is a bit more fast at the moment, right? So if we are dependent on, for example, our design team to create a pitch deck or a proposal after we had a really good conversation with a prospect, for example, we tend to lose weeks, right? And as mentioned earlier, like sales is all about momentum. So I know, for example, that our prospects and our customers are also talking to our competitors, for example. And if they can move faster than we lose momentum over there. And I think that's why it's really important to empower people in the organization to be able to create that content at scale, but obviously govern it, right? And that's why we are working quite well with our design team and our marketing team, so that they actually are empowering us to be able to create that content at scale.
Yeah, I think, if I put my marketing hat back on for a minute, I think there is to what you're saying there. I fully agree, right? So of course, marketing wants to be enabling and supporting as much as they can from a brand perspective, right? We want everything that the organization is doing from a communications perspective to be on point and consistent and high quality. But of course, marketing is busy with all sorts of different things, and sales has a high demand for content, which is important. It's time sensitive, as you're saying. It's the quick and the dead, right? Every minute you wait, that's a minute your competitor can get in there before you. It's really important for us to be able to support from a brand and design perspective without having a huge workload in terms of creation. So the ability for us to look after the brand within the governance functionality within the platform, but have you guys build yourselves so that you can be as quick as you need to be, but not worry about the quality. I think that's a really, really important piece of the pie here from a marketing and sales perspective, not just a sales one. Tina, you're here as well. Welcome. Just before we get into it, right? So I'm going to let Roell show what his team does in the platform in a minute. But I think just from your perspective, RevOps, right? And of course, it's a part of many businesses that's growing and becoming increasingly more important from a strategic perspective. Maybe you can say something just at a high level about what it means for you in your role to be able to support sales with intelligence and with data when you work in a process like this, right, where you've got user-driven insight with the content rather than something blind like a PDF that's gone in a mail, and you're maybe not able or even guessing really sometimes in terms of, or have you had a chance to read the mail yet? Did you manage to send it through to your colleague? These are things you don't know, right? What does it mean for you in your job to be able to work with that data?
Yeah, I think sales team, as Roell mentioned, needs speed and needs to be relevant, and they are super busy. And in the CRM, we have loads of data, and we have to make sure that we create prioritization for the reps. So, for example, if the AE just shared a piece of content with the prospect, they can get alerted in real time if the prospect actually opened that asset, so that they can immediately engage and ask, okay, how did you find it? What are the next steps now? But if the content is static and we don't embed it in our workflows and automations, we don't enable the reps to just have the right messaging at the right time with the prospect.
Yeah, critical. Okay, so I think, Roell, if you would be so kind, it might be interesting to have a bit of a look in the platform itself and give the guys at home a bit of a flavor about how we manage this process and what's possible, right? Because there's a lot of folks using Foleon for this.
Yeah. Should I just show you how we create the whole experience in like less than 5 minutes?
Well, 5 minutes. Well, okay, if you can do that.
Sounds good. Before I start sharing my screen, I do want to talk a little bit about something that Valentina just mentioned. So nowadays, and you probably see it in your organization as well, to get to a decision, there's so many more stakeholders involved. I think for like an average order value of like a 20K, typically there are like 13 people involved in the decision-making process. And I only see that sort of increase over time because the market's obviously not great at the moment, and there's a lot of things happening. So there's a lot more eyes on making investments as well. And what is really important and impactful for us, and I will sort of show that in a sec, is that indeed we are able to sort of see who is engaging with our content on a contact level. Not only the people that we have a direct conversation with on calls, but also, for example, if this buyer hub is being shared in the organization to our CEO or to the CEO or the CFO, for example, on a page-to-page level, we can basically see what people are consuming with. And that gives my team also a lot of insights on how to structure and how to follow up their cycles, which has a major impact on how we strategically guide our deals moving forward. But as promised, I want to sort of show you guys how we actually do that. So let me share my screen. No. Okay. Hey, also a couple of years ago, obviously, we didn't use our own platform for buyer enablement content yet. So before that time, there were a lot of like reps creating content themselves, right? Going rogue, content was off brand. But from a sales perspective and a sales leadership perspective, in honesty, I don't want my reps to be able to create asset, right? I don't want them to spend 3 or 4 hours creating a deck because I rather have them doing research. I rather have them having a conversation with a prospect. I'd rather have them on a demo to sort of show our platform. And like for me, efficiency and collaboration while governing this process is really important. So before we actually implemented this own system for ourselves, a couple of things were really important. So one, we want to empower the reps, right? Because they have the ability to speak to our customers and prospect on a daily level. So they're really good in sort of framing the problem and framing a solution because they are speaking to these people on a daily and they have a lot of good insights that they can share. But I know that my reps are not marketeers, right? I know that my reps are not designers. So we really want to limit them what they can do in the platform when it comes to branding, when it comes to the messaging itself. So with that in mind, we sort of created a process called our buyer hub. And the use case itself, it's basically an asset that we share after every good discovery call, so the first initial conversation that we had. But this is also an asset that we use towards the whole customer journey. So once we have a pricing conversation, we will add a page. Once we have legal and contracting situations, we will add a page to it. So it's basically a single source of truth. It's our voice with the prospect that they can share internally. So over here, you will see this is the dashboard. You'll see that there's a couple of buyer hubs already over here. One big aspect of our platform is obviously templates or branded templates. So our design team basically created this buyer hub process for us. And we also have a couple of other presentations, templates, for example. Then on the left side, you will see that there's obviously the brand console. So within the brand console, the brand kit is completely set up, and my team is obviously not touching that, right? Because we are very strict on our brand. And within our own Foleon admin account, there's a workspace called Buyer Hub, and all our reps have access to this Buyer Hub, and they won't have access to anybody else, any workspace else. So over here, you will see that there are a couple of templates completely set up already. and some modules. And I will talk a little bit about modules in a sec. But especially in sales-related use cases, it's really important that you keep control over what is out there, right? So with modules, our design team can, for example, make adjustment in content blocks. And if those content blocks are used, if these modules are used in content, it will automatically update even though when content is already out there. So for example, you can think about a logo page, you can think about, for example, your pricing. If you are launching a new product, for example, you can centrally govern it over here so that you don't have to be worried about content that is already out there. Yeah, but Richard, I promised that I will share how I can create one of these assets in less than 5 minutes. So yeah, start your timer. So now we're actually in the editor. So over here, you will see that there's a couple of pages within this template. So you have your cover, you have your lead generation form where people need to reveal themselves before accessing the buyer hub. Then we have a little bit of a summary of our conversation. This is a page that our reps need to adjust, success story, proposals, and next steps, and timeline and documentation. So when a rep had their conversation, quite quickly after the conversation, we want to follow up, right? So the only thing that our reps need to do in the buyer hub is, for example, adjust the name over here, go to the next page. And obviously I did do a little bit of preparation. So what we want people to do is after the conversation, write a little bit of an executive summary. What did we learn? Copy paste that in. Over here, this is all already set up for the rep. Then on success stories, which is a really important part, right? So obviously we work with a lot of industries, but for example, if a rep is talking to somebody in consultancy, for example, not all success stories are really hitting home. And this is indeed where we really want to empower our reps to be able to sort of curate content themselves based on the people that they're talking to. And over here, you will see that, for example, there are multiple success cases already in there. And this is indeed one of those modules that I talked about earlier that is centrally governed. But in case I want to create this content myself, I can also just delete this page. And on the left side over here, a lot of success cases are already predefined for me. So I don't have to be a designer over here. The only thing that I need to do as a rep is drag in this content and assemble some relevant use cases. And even I see, right, this doesn't really make sense. So I can just swap it out to the left, for example, and this one to the right to make sure it perfectly aligns and is a visible, pleasing setup. But this is basically how you curate content without having to go into the design and really working off templates. And this really empowers my team to be able to create bespoke content in minutes, right? Again, this is one of those modules. So for example, if we onboard a really new, nice customer, we can add the logo over here. And then when this block is being used in other types of content and pieces, it will automatically update. So again, this is a central way of governing this type of content. Then over here, proposal and pricing. So typically we hide this page if it's not relevant. So for example, if we don't have the conversation yet, but over here you can also incorporate, for example, a quick Loom video. So you basically talk your prospects through the pricing and why you are positioning like that. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to delete this and I'm going to make a written version of this. So for example, add in a bit of a summary over here. And then obviously we have multiple plans, but in case the scale plan is not relevant, I can just delete this block. I don't have to adjust anything over here. There's the pricing over here. And then the next step is all about, okay, what do we have planned, right? So for example, so we have a session with the marketing operation team and with the wider team with the creative services. So that is basically it. Now we're ready to publish. The only thing that I need to do over here is to push the publish button. It will automatically publish the publication on the predefined URL structure that we have set up, and I can share this directly with my prospect. So yeah, I think that was less than 5 minutes. So this is how we create content at scale at Foleon.
Yeah, you definitely beat 5 minutes. So, but I think what's clear, right, is that what you're saying is you've got a heavily templatized process because, you know, to some extent, running a sales deal is running a sales deal. But where you need to be able to modify or change the content specific to the people that you're speaking to, it's very, very easy for the reps to do that themselves. What I would love to get into now, Tina, is to ask you to show us what the data bit on the back end looks like, right? Because we've spoken about that at the beginning, how important it is to understand what's happening with your content in a sales process and how you can leverage that to drive deal velocity, increase win rates, all these kind of things important to understand for sales leadership. Tell us a little bit about what we can see in the CRM when we've got the document plugged in.
Yes, definitely. Let me share my screen. It's so important to not just have static document, but actually turn it into actionable insights. If I look at what I see in the CRM, so we're using HubSpot. Once you've shared a piece of content with your prospect, and you can literally see how they're consuming the content, how are they engaging with them. So you can literally follow through their activities. You can see that they checked why getting Foleon, the success stories, and other thought leadership pieces. And going back to your deal, we talked about the fact that it's so important to understand, get a full picture of the buying committee. So how can you actually turn this information in having a better sense of who are you dealing with and enable the reps to approach the right stakeholders and have the full picture. So indeed, it's important, and that's why it's so powerful to have gated content, because at the point you can put, for example, a Foleon form there or a HubSpot form in our case, and you at the point you gate the contact and you ask emails, but you're not just collecting emails, you're actually triggering workflows. And in that way, you can actually map the buying committee, also those people that the rep doesn't know anything about, because there might be other stakeholders that haven't surfaced yet. So let's look at more, like maybe it's nice to look at more the workflow side and how we can enable the rep to have the right information. So when there's a new form submission for the gating content, we can utilize, for example, Zapier to update the contact in your CRM and alert the account executive about the new form submission. And these translated into your CRM gives the rep a full visibility of the buying committee and also those stakeholders that are not yet known. And we will enable the rep to have the right conversation with the right stakeholders, but also avoid being blindsided later into the deal.
Thanks, Tina. So, Roell, give us an insight into what it means for your guys to have that kind of information accessible to them.
Yeah. So I think in general, like if we can be notified on sort of who is engaging with our contact and when, it gives a lot of options to the sales rep, right? So in case, I don't know, for example, a CFO is engaging with our buyer hub and he's looking at our proposal, for example. Yeah, we can easily just pick up the phone, give that person a call to understand a little bit more on sort of what that person cares about, elaborate a little bit more on the questions that they have, and more importantly, build that relationship as well, right? As mentioned, like stakeholder management is so important to drive deals forward, to really make sure that people change the way they create content. And there's a lot of people involved in the organization that we typically don't talk to off the bat. And this gives us a lot of options to steer our deals.
Yeah. So I think we're almost at time here, but I think thanks to both of you for giving us a good insight, not just what's important for you within your roles, right, but how you're leveraging the platform to hopefully make your team's lives easier and help them to be more successful. I think what we haven't even touched on are things like personalization, which of course you can do in the platform, right? That's another layer that you can build in here with the documents that you're creating to try and get even better interaction and engagement with the people that you're speaking to. And of course, we saw it a little bit with the proposal there that, of course, whatever other content you're building in the platform, probably from a marketing perspective, very easy to start picking up parts of that or all of that and tying that into your sales process and making sure that information is also available. Leading people on a journey through the marketing content, whatever it might be, a piece of research, a report, a white paper, an ebook, and from there into a sales process where that that content and that look and feel is also coming back again. I think that's quite strong. But of course, after the deal's being completed, there's a whole after sales piece there as well in terms of the documentation information needs to be available for a handover to a consultancy or support or whatever customer service it might be. Again, another use of the platform that could be leveraged. There's all sorts of content coming together here, right? I think the main takeaway hopefully is probably that where there's a commercial process, there's probably content. And if you're not doing it in Foleon yet, it's probably worth having a think about how you might be able to get even more value from the platform by picking that up as well. I don't know if you guys want to just sign off with any last thoughts before we say goodbye to everybody. Tina?
Well, no, just finish saying that it's so important to integrate your content with your platform so that you can actually turn all these insights in something that helps the reps, enables the rep in moving the conversation forward, like improving your sales cycle, the win rate, so that we keep everyone happy, marketing, sales, everyone.
I think for me, it's indeed like the whole market is changing. The way we create content is changing. But what I see in a lot of conversations with our prospect is that the way we create content hasn't been really changed in the last couple of years. And I think when you talk about true collaboration empowerment, it's really important to sort of think about how can I build a better process and how can I empower people to be able to create content that they need at the time frame that they need it by, instead of like keeping within the structure that you've been running for the last 30 years, right? So the environment around you is changing. Make sure that you adapt to it. But I really love this webinar and this conversation. So I hope a lot of our prospect and customers felt that this was helpful, and we'll start testing it out and implementing it themselves as well.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, both of you, for taking us through that and helping us understand a little bit more about what the sales process can look like in Foleon. To anybody watching today who's interested to get into this in a little bit more detail, of course, your customer success manager is ready and waiting to help you with this and give you a bit more guidance and support on how you could potentially start to use Foleon for processes that look like this. So I would encourage any of you to reach out and have that conversation if you think it could be beneficial. If you are watching and are not in the sales part of your organization, but think it might be relevant for your colleagues, please do reach out and encourage them to get in contact with us. More than happy to help. And of course, this is one webinar in a series. We're looking to get one of these out every couple of weeks, full of tips and tricks and useful information to help you guys get more value from the platform. So keep an eye on the calendar, and we hope to see you again next time. Thanks for coming, and good luck. Bye-bye.